Good morning, good morning. Thank you for all of you viewing this parent workshop. The title is actually Parenting in Crises, and how many know that there's just so much beyond just COVID? There's so many things going on. The climate, the temperature of our nation, and with all the fast-paced adapting and changes that we have to make. I could only imagine how challenging this must be for you as a parent, but we're so blessed and so excited to be able to put this webinar together. It's a 2-hour webinar from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and we have so many amazing speakers that are just going to encourage you, that are not only going to give you spiritual, but also practical tools that you can use as you're leading your children through these times. There's a verse in the Bible I want to open up with, Proverbs 22:6, and this will be the theme verse throughout the rest of the day. And you'll see it on the screen when you hear me read this. In Proverbs 22:6, it says this. It says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." And you know what? I'm sure so many of us in church have heard this verse before, but let me tell you something. This verse has not been more relevant than what we're seeing today in our society. It starts off with train up a child. And this is really such an important thing for all of us to understand that, you no longer are you just parent, but you're parent, your spouse, your teacher now. For those of you that are homeschooling, you have a full-time job, and then we still need to train our children and coach our children through all these crises. And so I'm going to start with the first session. The first 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about cyberbullying. And with me today is Captain Diaz from the Santa Clarita Sheriff's Department and Deputy Koch. But I want them to introduce themselves and grab a pen, a paper, if you're old school, to take notes. Or just use your technology. But we will have our commentators there putting some specific points that the speakers may share. And then you also can text your questions to the number you'll see on the screen throughout the entire session. And we'll do our best to answer as many of those as we can. So thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today. Really, we're so blessed to have you guys.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Captain Justin Diaz from Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Station. And I would like to thank Elevate Church for having us here today to join your virtual parent workshop. A little bit about me. I have been at the station since March of this year. I've been serving on the Sheriff's Department for almost 20 years, and I've been a resident of our community here in Santa Clarita Valley for 16 years. I'm a parent of 2 young children, and which really makes me want to help out today, speak today, especially on the topic of bullying and cyberbullying. I think we know that cyberbullying is prevalent in any community and throughout our nation, so this is really, really important topic. Today, Deputy Koch and I, and I'll introduce him in a second, but we're going to be talking about various things that involve cyberbullying. So how to spot it, what do you do if you think your child is involved in it or is a victim of it, how to monitor your child's social media, things like that. But before we get into it, I'd like to introduce Deputy Joshua Koch. So Deputy Koch is one of our school resource deputies. And for those of you that are not familiar with the juvenile intervention team that we have at the station, our juvenile intervention team is comprised of 6 school resource deputies, a sergeant, 1 detective, 1 intervention specialist, and 2 additional deputies. So Deputy Koch, being a school resource officer, is part of that team. He's responsible for Bowman High School, Saugus High School, and Arroyo Seco. And Deputy Koch's really going to take a deep dive into cyberbullying today. And again, how to spot the signs of cyberbullying if your child's been a victim, how you can monitor cyberbullying, things of that nature. Before we get into that, though, I kind of want to take a trip down memory lane the last 30 years. I think it's safe to say that we've got parents of all ages that are with us today, and we might have parents in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. And, what does technology look like today that it maybe didn't look like 30 years ago? So follow me on this. I think this is going to bring a smile to a lot of faces when we think about this. In the early 90s, right? So think back 30 years. In the early 90s, cell phones began gaining popularity, right? And you think of a cell phone, it seems like such a common device that we have now. It almost just seems like it's just a part of us. But 30 years ago, it wasn't. They just started becoming popular. Home computers. Okay, so cell phones, home computers. People started having Apple computers at home. They started having personal PCs. That wasn't a big thing up until that time. The early days of the internet. Who could forget America Online, the old school dial-up? The chat rooms, things like that.
MySpace.
Exactly. So America Online started to become popular. And then you kind of transition to the mid to late 90s and text messaging, right? So you could actually now start text messaging through other carriers, different phones. That started to become popular. And then we go into the early 2000s, and all of a sudden cell phones now have cameras. Who would have thought in a million years you wouldn't have to walk around with a separate camera, a big clunky camera. You could just use it in your cell phone. And I remember at the time we thought, God, those are so cool. Now I look back on those old school cameras and they weren't any good. Now we've really got good cameras. And then you move into 03, MySpace. You just mentioned 03, MySpace came around. Then here's the birth or the start of social media. And then into 04, Facebook. We all know Facebook, right? And then 2007. Okay, so I'm not going to say what happened in 2007. I'm going to give you guys a second. Think about all the parents out there. What happened in 2007? What major electronic innovation did we have in 2007? I'm going to give you a second to think about it before I spoil it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was 2007 was the first iPhone was released, right? Think about it. What are we up to now? An iPhone 11 or,
iPhone 11.
Coming up to the 12 pretty soon? So think about that. The first iPhone in 07, we take that for granted. That's something we totally take for granted. Then you move into 2010, Instagram, right? And Snapchat, 2011, Twitter, and then here we are today. And the list goes on and on and on. Those just popped out when I was doing some research. So, of course, there's a countless list of different social media platforms and apps that kids use today, and adults. So it brings us here today. And why are we here? Well, when we think about our kids, we think about our youth, our teenagers, even young adults, they have all this social media that we as parents watching may not have had or probably didn't have. And they have all this social media, and they've got, cell phones, they've got tablets, they've got computers, they've got the internet, they've got our old cell phones as parents.
That's true.
What do you do with the old cell phone? You'd give it to your kid, and now it's, a little mini tablet, So it's amazing what these kids have, and very young kids, kids as young as 5 or 6 or 4, they're playing on tablets, learning colors and learning ABCs and things like that. And, they just grow up thinking, this is the norm, and it is the norm. So I think when you take all of those electronics, you take the internet, and now you take COVID-19, right? Since March, COVID-19's hit us, and now we're doing distance learning, we're doing, homeschool, and the kids are on the tablets, on the computers, they're going to school online. It's concerning, or it's potentially concerning. And we need to come together as parents, come together as adults, and talk about some of those resources that we have. So I think the final question is, where do we go from here? And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Deputy Joshua Koch, and he's going to kind of get more into it, take a deeper dive into cyberbullying and what you can do to ensure your kids are safe. So without further ado, Josh, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Elevate Church. Thank you so much for having me be a part of your family this morning. I am honored and so thankful. I am Deputy Koch. A little bit about myself. I have been a resident of Santa Clarita Valley for about 12 years now. I'm a graduate of Master's College with a bachelor's in biblical studies. I've been in youth ministry for a long time, and I have a heart for kids. So what I'm going to share with you today, it's heavy on my heart. A lot of the stuff that I'll be sharing is firsthand information, stuff that I actually see, and I've only been on for a short time. But a little bit more about me. I grew up, I graduated 05, so I was didn't have an iPhone. I had a pager, I think, still.
Pagers.
And I was actually bullied growing up. I was 300 pounds, I had a lisp, and people made fun of me every day in high school. I hated high school. I can't imagine going through high school today, honestly. So what we're talking about today is cyberbullying. What are the differences between cyberbullying and regular bullying? Well, when I was bullied, it was an isolated incident. It was at high school. I had a release. I could go home. I could escape it. I could do those kind of things. Some of the biggest differences, I'm gonna read some points to you that I wrote down. Cyberbullying reaches a vast audience within seconds. As you guys all know about the internet, anything that's said on Twitter, any video, any picture, it's all over the world in seconds. It can be repeatedly shared over time, over and over and over again. With that, it's never truly erased. We see it all the time with Twitter accounts, people that have tweeted something from 2010 and it's coming back 10 years later. Yeah. Same thing with kids. Something that may haunt them from their 8th grade year will still haunt them till their 12th grade year. It's 24/7. These kids have phones, and if they're not being monitored, and they have them in their rooms at night, they're getting text messages. They're getting bullied at 2 a.m. in the morning when they're supposed to be sleeping. That's a whole nother topic about the addiction of electronics that kids have too. And one of the biggest ones is it can be spread anonymously. You can go on the internet, create a fake account, do whatever, all the trolls that are out there, and kids, they did a poll, over 81% of kids admit that it is easier to get away with aggressive behavior online.
Wow.
It's just easier.
Wow.
They have more of the, I don't know if you want to call it a cowardly courage.
Yeah.
So what exactly is happening out there? I have a short amount of time, so I'm going to try to share some stories, share some, like he said, how to monitor, what to look for, and things like that. But I'm just going to try to share my heart too. So these kids are being harassed, demeaned, intimidated, taunted by other kids. They're embarrassing them. They're stalking them. They're rumor spreading. The rumors spread like wildfires all throughout schools and then to different high schools. Kids are impersonating other kids. Kids are creating, high school and junior high kids are creating accounts in the name of another child and posting stuff like they're them. That kind of stuff is happening. They use text messages to harass and victimize them, making fun of them, whatever. They have group text. They create entire websites, Instagram accounts, pictures of the people to humiliate them. Of course, they attack behavior aimed at different things like sexuality, racial, physical, weight-based, gender, all that stuff. But one of the things that really, this is going to be kind of heavy-hearted, but one of the things that they're doing is kids are telling other kids to hurt themselves. Other kids are bullying online to the point where they say, why don't you just kill yourself? This is firsthand information. I've dealt with it, multiple kids. That cowardly courage that they have, that they think that they can tell them to go cut yourself, go kill yourself. It's just words, and these words are hurting our children, and we need to do something as parents. I try to do my duty as a deputy every day when I go into school, helping these kids. But all these things that I've mentioned of cyberbullying, what's happening in the high schools here in the Valley and all over the world, they say that only about 10% of kids that are actually being cyberbullied tell their parents.
Wow.
Only 10%.
Wow.
Their silence may be because they're ashamed and they don't want to tell their parents. Sure. Maybe it's something that they're ashamed of and they don't want their parents to find out. It could be because of retaliation. It could be they're afraid that the bully is going to make fun of them more or physically hurt them. So we need to help navigate our children through this, and that's why we're parenting through this crisis. I am trying to help as much as I can. That means that you're going to need to do some proactive observing to keep your kids safe online. So if the kids aren't telling us, and 90% of the kids are not telling us that they're being cyberbullied, how do we tell if they are? There is no 100% telltale sign. We just can't. A sign could be there, and it could be for something else. There's nothing. But we need to look to our children. Nowadays, I feel like parents can be absent. I'm not speaking for every parent. It's hard with the day and age that we live in, especially with technology. Parents can be subject to that too.
Sure.
So we need to look and see our kids and be proactively in their lives. Some of the signs that I'm just gonna list off some bullet points. Like I said, it doesn't mean they're being cyberbullied, but it's just signs of possible. It could be misplaced, damaged, or lost belongings that you've seen that their behavior. A child can be withdrawn and depressed, losing interest in people, activities, and food. Social media accounts can be shut down and new ones appear. That's a big one. Why would your kid shut down and then create a new one? And I'll go into like asking questions. Like, just don't let it, like, oh, okay, they did it. Unexplained physical injuries, constantly keeping track of your kids and making sure they're okay. Increased school attendance going down. Truancies, changes in your academic performance. Stealing money from friends and family, negative mood behaviors and changes, insomnia. Insomnia is a big one. Kids nowadays are stuck on their phone till 2, 3 in the morning on YouTube and on the chat rooms and everything else, and self-destructive behavior. So these are just some signs to look for. Like I said, a kid could be cyberbullied and not show a single sign, unfortunately.
Wow.
I didn't show any signs of being bullied. I just tried to be tough. And I didn't, another thing, I kind of raised myself since I was 14. I didn't have parents to help me through this, really. But that's for another time. So what do you do if you suspect that your child is being cyberbullied? Kids can feel powerless and trapped from the threats from cyberbullying. So I'm going to go over a couple of points if you want to write these down. You can actually get these points from stopbullying.gov. Stopbullying.gov. It's a federal site that helps you through that cyberbullying and all kinds of bullying. The first one would be notice. Just what we talked about right now, the signs. Try to notice what's going on in your kids' lives. Be in their lives. Ask questions. See their behavior changes. Question their behavior changes. Don't accept, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it.
Very good.
Talk. So first one's notice. Second one's talk. You need to talk to your kids. Ask questions. Ask what's going on in their life. Ask about what they're doing on their phone. Ask about if they are being cyberbullied. Ask what's happening, how it started, how it's involved. Lay it out all on the table. The third one would be document. Document everything. Keep a record of what is happening, where. Take screenshots if you know how to. If you don't know how to, you can ask us at the department. I'm sure there are some tech-savvy people at Elevate as well.
Definitely.
Another one would be report, the fourth one. Most social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and all those other places, they have an area where you can report bullying. You can also report to the school, and you can also report to the sheriff's department. Bullying can be a crime, and we'll talk about that later. And then the last one would be support. Make sure that your kids have support, good support. Peers, mentors, parents, everyone. I wasn't planning on saying this, but one of my youth pastors once told me, you're like a popsicle stick. And a popsicle stick by itself, you can snap in half easily. If you have 50 popsicle sticks, like the body of Elevate, it's hard to break that. It's so the good support. So your kids need that support. They need good influences in their life. So all that to say, those are some of the things that what you can do when you suspect cyberbullying. Now, how to react. Being a parent, it can be tough to react to this kind of stuff. You can have a heavy heart. You can be angry. You can be sad. You can have all these emotions in your heart. But we need to react the right way. So first and foremost, don't overreact, okay? We don't want to berate our children for not telling us sooner. Why didn't you tell me? How dare you? Okay, that's not what we need to do. Now, on the other hand, we don't want to underreact. We don't want to underreact and say, I was bullied when I was a kid. No big deal. You know? These kids are going through a lot more than all three of us did.
Yes.
A way, way different generation.
Definitely.
Way. the evil and the sin that they encounter, oh, I can't believe it. I have 3 children of my own, and I am terrified for them to go to school and even have a phone. I don't even know I want them to have a phone ever. Another way to react, obviously, is to be understanding and supportive. Work together with your child. Be a team, okay? Emphasize that your child is not to blame for the situation.
That's a good one.
He or she is not to blame for the cyberbullying, okay?
That's good.
Emphasize that to your child. And then lastly, it goes without saying, don't tease them yourself. It's not funny. We don't know what our kids are going through, the emotions of what's making them feel. Don't be a bully yourself as a parent. It actually happens, unfortunately. I see it. But don't be a bully yourself. So what are some things that you can prevent both your child from being bullied and bullying other kids? Because we might have a child that is bullying someone else.
That's so good, because often we think it's just our child that may be being bullied, when in reality, sometimes it's our
We want to
kid.
protect our children, right?
Exactly.
We want to think the best of them.
That's good.
So what can we do? And this is where we're going to talk about monitoring. Like I said, I could sit here and talk to you guys for like 8 hours on all the stuff and get into the nitty-gritty of the actual social media, but I'm trying to just hit bullet points. So monitoring your child's technology use. That can be one of the most effective tools in preventing any kind of cyberbullying. My notes. One of the things you can do is restrict your child's mobile device and computer to a certain area in the house. Now, these are just recommendations. I'm not telling you that this is the law, okay? This is just some recommendations of my own, and I think they're also on government sites as well. Me, personally, in our family, we have a little, I came up with the idea to put a bucket, and when you come in the house, we put the phones in the bucket because it's family time. We don't want the distractions. Phones can be used for good, for the glory of God, but phones can also be a distraction and an idol, right? So we have to put those restrictions in our homes and when we're with family and other friends. Put data limits on your child's phone. You can do that. You can contact Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, whatever you have, Cricket, all that other stuff. Turn off text messaging during certain hours. So if your child goes to bed at 8, you can actually set it to not receive anything after 8. Same thing with data and all the other stuff. Make use of the filtering options for your web browsers. That's a whole nother thing. But in regards to cyberbullying, make sure all internet's off. Insist that your child divulge their passwords. There is no respect in the privacy of, oh, I want to respect my child. No, we should have you should have every passcode to the phone, to social media, to everything. We need to monitor what's going on. Until they are 18 years old, they are your child. You are in charge of them. Let's see. And then this is a funny one. Keep up on the acronyms. I still have a hard time doing that. I know LOL. But there are a lot of them. And it comes, like when it comes to cyberbullying, sexting, when it comes to drug dealing, there's tons of acronyms. If you see an acronym, look it up. Maybe you don't want to ask your kid, ask someone else first. But you should ask your kid later on.
Yeah, and you can just Google it too. If you see a LOL or
it's so hard
GG, whatever.
Yeah, they have almost all of them.
Yeah.
But it's like they come up with new stuff every day. It's
true.
crazy. Look through their phone. Okay, this is a huge one. Look through their phone. It's your phone. They're on your plan. Kids have so much hidden stuff on their phone. I'm gonna tell you right now, kids do not text message anymore. I don't know if you know that. They don't text. They text their mom and their dad and maybe their best friend. Now, they use Snapchat. They use Instagram. It's DMs, if you've ever heard DMs. It's direct messages to Snapchat or Instagram. That's how they do it. It's secret. It's hidden. Parents don't see it. Other people don't see it.
So true.
They don't do text. And then with that, how do I put this? You can actually search text messages, Snapchat, Instagram, by just bringing the drop down and searching a word. If I'm interested in making sure my kid isn't doing something, you can search a keyword, and it'll take every text, every direct message that says that word.
That's
you
incredible.
Type in the word drug, it will pop up every word drug, or the word hate, or whatever it is, any curse words or anything. You can search everything, okay? That's what you need to do. We need to monitor our kids' texts, our Snapchats, Instagrams, and everything else.
That is so rich. Very good.
Turn on parent controls. All those things have parent controls, tablets, Facebooks, Instagrams, and then gaming networks. This is a side tangent. If you have boys or maybe girls that like gaming, gaming's huge. I played Nintendo. I think I had the latest version I had was like a PlayStation in high school. But now they have like all the Xbox, PlayStation, computer games, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto, and all this other stuff. To parents who have kids who are gamers, you need to monitor that stuff. If you're going to buy your kid a game or a game station or whatever it is, you should play the game yourself. Put on the headset and listen to the other players. Listen to what they're saying. Play the game with them. See what kind of game it is. You need to do this kind of stuff. We can't just, it says +7 or MA. Here you go. The other kids do it. Oh, well. No, we're parents. We're supposed to parent.
And just to add to that, when you're saying put on the headsets and listen, in a lot of these platforms of these games now, there's a community of people that are on there. So your child may be 8 years old playing, what's the battle one? There's this one specific game it's like a war game. It's very popular, but you can have a 50-year-old man
Absolutely
talking to your 8-year-old child, and so it's knowing that it's a full community, which I don't think most parents know that these gaming, they just think they're playing a video game, but now most kids have their headsets, right, listening.
Yeah, and quite honestly, not anything specific, but this is fact, that those gaming sites, like there's a site called Discord, it's for gamers. And they listen to each other on the headsets, they play with each other and all this other stuff. That's how you hear the 40-year-old man getting arrested for hooking up with a 14-year-old girl.
And I think the captain had something to share about that as well.
This hits home, Josh, what you're saying. I have a young son who's just starting to get into games, and he's playing a Fortnite. And he came in a couple months ago and said, hey, somebody's yelling at me through the game. Now, I've never played Fortnite. I've got no clue what he's talking about. This just happened to me. And, the game was still going. And I went and listened to it. And he wasn't wearing a headset. It was coming through the speakers. And it was an adult, you could tell it wasn't a child, was yelling at him,
Wow.
and I don't know if he knew my son was a child or not. I have no idea, but my child had never experienced that before. And exactly what you're saying happened to me. And I had to explain to him that, yeah, there's people on the other line. They don't know how old you are, and I know you don't know how old they are. And you could see he got sad. It was a really awkward moment. And then we figured out, or I think we figured out, how to turn off the communication on there.
Yes.
I believe we did. Hopefully we did. But everything you said hits home so much, especially anybody with any young kids. And the gaming, I'm really glad you brought it up, because we just think about all these apps and all the social media, and the gaming is just unbelievable.
It's
the gaming
huge.
is just this massive form of social media that, I didn't even think about it, and I'm in the business. I didn't even think about protecting my son with the gaming world. And, it really hits home, and I'm really, really glad you brought that up. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. With the gaming, just a fun little story. We have it happen in Santa Clarita. I believe it's called swatting, correct? People can, from like Russia or other countries, other states, if they are upset because they did something and they are bullying each other, they can find their IP address, find out where the address is, and then call in a crazy call, a 911 call, and we're responding to an 8-year-old playing a video game, and we think it's a dangerous call. So that kind of bullying is happening. So with gaming, parents, you need to know this kind of stuff is happening with these games, these first-person shooter games and everything else. I have a whole other opinion on that, but save that for another day too. So with gaming, just make sure that you're teaching your children safe online behavior. I'm not saying games are bad or a sin, but what I'm saying is you need to establish rules on how they play, how much time they can play, and other things like that.
Awesome.
With apps, a couple more things. There's tons of apps. Like I said, Discord, Facebook, Kick, Live Meet, Meet Me, Reddit, Snapchat, TikTok, Tumblr, Twitter, Vine. Some of them are old. Like Facebook's for old people now.
Yeah,
it's true. I don't know
true.
if you knew that.
Yeah.
It's for old people.
Young people don't go to Facebook.
So we're streaming on Facebook, correct?
What's that? Yeah, we're
for
streaming.
Old people.
Yes, for all the
All of
older
us?
people.
Yeah.
And
So-
they already send a bunch of questions, so we'll get to those soon whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up right now. Just a couple more things. One thing that I want you, the number one thing in being a school deputy that I deal the most with, because I deal with high school kids, but also junior high, is Snapchat. Snapchat, in my opinion, this is not the sheriff, the deputy sheriff in me, this is my opinion as a parent, Snapchat is dangerous.
Yeah.
I will never have my kid have Snapchat. I'm not sure about social media and other things, but Snapchat, I have dealt with child pornography, I have dealt with bullying, I have dealt with drug dealing, I have dealt with anything, everything under the sun in regards to when it comes to the law involving us. Snapchat can easily be erased. Snapchat can be hidden. Snapchat can be shared with everyone. And you need to, if you're going to let your kid have a Snapchat or something like that, you need to monitor it. You need to see it. You need to learn how to use it, how to use the interface, how to search their messages, how to search the photos, the videos, and everything else. Because a lot of the bullying is coming from Snapchat. The person that I told you earlier about firsthand information that they're telling this poor child to hurt themselves, it's coming from Snapchat.
Wow.
But kids, to wrap it up, kids, this whole online cyberbullying, like I said, happens within seconds. When it comes to pictures, rumors, everything else, I was just telling the captain right before we got started, there's a thing called airdrop. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of airdrop. You can airdrop to 200 people at a football game, in a high school game, and it can be something completely inappropriate.
Yeah. Parents,
Parents, you need to see what's on your kids' phones. Some of these kids in East Valley have illegal, felonious things on their phones. And you as parents are in charge of them. You need to look through their photos. You need to look. I love it when I go to a house and I'm investigating something, and I say, you have anything bad on your phone? No. Do you mind if I look? Yeah. I go, okay, first thing, I don't even go to the photos. I go to erased photos at the very bottom.
Yeah.
It keeps your phone for 30 days. And what do I find? Oh, you erased something right before I got here. So kids are sneaky. The kids are kids. We were sneaky when we were kids too, but as parents, we need to parent well, and we need to monitor our kids on social media, on the gaming sites, and everything else. I can't stand bullying. I can't stand to encourage someone to commit suicide is a felony, and it breaks my heart to see these kids and the mental illnesses that are going on today. And my last point, I want to say, if you're a bystander, I think I had something here. If you're a bystander, that's the most painstaking thing for me is kids that are just standing by letting it happen. Yeah. They don't want to get bullied themselves. They don't want to get involved. So if you want to talk to your kid and talk about cyberbullying and talk about all these things, some points I have, do not participate, obviously. Do not join in with the laugh. If your kid is a part of a text thread that is making fun of other kids or inappropriate pictures, tell him to delete it, to block those people.
Yeah.
Okay, you're in charge of that. 2, do not retaliate or respond negatively. So even though we want justice and we want to stand up for our friends as kids, don't let your kids, do something that's going to cause them to look like they're bullying.
Sure.
3rd, respond privately to the person who created the hurtful message. We don't want to blow it up. we go to someone in private first. Fourth, follow up with the person who was targeted. There are people who are hurting. Tell your children to go to them and help them. Put their hand out. I mean, that's what Elevate Church. You guys have the revival going on out here.
Yeah.
I want to see a revival with the kids in the schools. I want to see it. I do. And then lastly, report it. Report it.
Very good. Thank you so much. We do have some questions. Captain, you had something?
Yeah, real quick, before we get into the questions, thank you, Josh. That was
Very
extremely informative. I actually learned quite a bit. I'm older than you and am not in touch with all of this, so I've learned a lot, actually. One thing before we get into all the question and answer, because I know we're going to be running out of time for this segment, is two things I want to touch upon. So the sheriff's station, we've got, over 200 deputies assigned to the station, and basically we're a wealth of resources at the station. And guys and gals like Josh, they come from different experiences, different backgrounds. They do different jobs at the station. They did different jobs before they became deputy sheriffs, as Josh has got unique experience. So, we are a wealth of resources at the station. If there's something that you need, please call the station. We will figure it out. If we don't have the resource at the station, the Sheriff's Department is a massive, massive, massive department, and we will find the resource on the department. The one thing that we did not talk about, though, is, and it might be a question that came up, and I'll touch upon it very briefly, is when does cyberbullying or bullying become a crime? We're offering all these tips and things to parents, but really when it comes down to it, the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department are in the business of enforcing law. And when a crime is committed against you, or you are a suspect of a crime, that's when we're called. And quite frankly, that's what our business is, to enforce law. So the question comes up, when does cyberbullying or bullying become a crime? And, it's not a quick bullet point answer. There's different variables that go into it. But I think the easiest way to put it into words, just to get parents thinking about it, is one, if there's threats of violence, okay? So we know what that means. Are you threatening to commit violence, to harm somebody else? Is that in person? Was it on tape? Was it video recorded? Was it on the internet? So threats of violence, we all know what that is. Child pornography, Josh briefly touched upon that. That's a touchy subject in high schools. It happens quite a bit. And, certainly any schools, whether it's middle school, high school, that happens. So threats of violence, child pornography, we know what both those are. Stalking, okay, I think everybody knows what stalking is. Of course, online stalking, in-person stalking, they could be both. So that's our third one. And then our fourth one is hate crimes. Josh briefly mentioned, bullying based on weight, based on, religion. But, if there's some sort of bullying based on, race, and it turns into a hate crime or a hate incident, that's something that we'd want to be notified on. So again, threats of violence, child pornography, stalking and hate crimes are four, to put it in a very basic sense, are four things that we're looking for as law enforcement, because that is our job, is to enforce the law, whether you're a suspect of it or whether you're a victim of it. So that's all I have. Let's get into
really good,
some
Captain.
of our questions and answers.
Yes.
I think we have quite a few.
Yeah, we do. We actually got a whole bunch of people sending them in. This one's a good one. Why or what are the best ways to keep an open line of communication with my child about cyberbullying? Because you gave that stat of 90%. That's huge. So what do you recommend a parent does in order to keep that, like, how do you start the conversation? Like, what would you say to keep that open communication pipeline open with them? Because that's a high statistic.
Yeah. And it's a hard question to answer because every parent and every child is different. To keep that open line of communication, I think just communicating with your kids in the sense of, nowadays, we overemphasize privacy. Privacy. I think that if you have a conversation with your child and explain to them the reasons that you're doing what you're doing, I think that you open up that line of communication of like, hey, this is what we're doing as a family, and they may not like it, and they may turn away from you. Every kid's different, like I said, so it's a hard question to answer, but just having what what I was going to say, like for me specifically, I was bullied as a kid. That's a way to segue and tell them like, hey, I want to talk about this. I just want to talk about it. You may not experience this, you may not see it, but it's important, and I want to talk about it.
So basically expose the issues that
Absolutely
we're
expose
dealing with
it.
now. That's very
Except
good.
not ignoring it, exposing
Yeah,
it.
not ignoring it. And investigate, I think you said, make sure that you're looking at all the accounts on your child's phone. So I think a lot of investigation would be good as a parent. This other one, this is a tough one to answer, but my child won't let me in their social media accounts. How do I control their social media usage and content? That's
hard.
a tough one.
So
yeah, please.
I'll share my
Okay.
opinion. So the child won't let them in.
Won't let them in any of their social media platforms.
Okay. So me as a parent, if you're not going to let me in, I'm taking everything away. That's just me. If you're not going to let me look at your social media or do any of that stuff, for me as a parent, I'm taking the phone away. I'm taking the computer away. And that's where we get that dicey, like, well, my kid needs a phone because he's at school. And what happens if there's an emergency? Sure. There's certain obstacles that we have to go through with that. But I would say, personally, I would take away all electronics, and it's a deal. It's like it's an ultimatum. You're either going to, or I'm taking everything away.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. And at least with the iPhones, and I would assume the Androids are in the same thing, you can go on there, set a parent. It's very simple to do, and we actually learned how to do it through YouTube, and you can find a video to walk you through it. You can go on there as a parent, set a passcode on there, and you touched upon it earlier, Josh, and basically limit when the child can use the phone. And you can also limit the apps. You can, like, for example, you could turn Safari on and off. You could turn off pretty much any app. So in theory, as a parent, you could put in your own password on the child's phone, and you could say, whatever time they're in school, say from 8:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. My child's at school. The only thing that will work during that time period is the actual phone, or maybe text message, or whatever you decide you want. Another thing is, there's a lot of apps that track children, or track other cell phones. So again, the question comes up: well, how do I respect my child's privacy online, or how do I respect their privacy with the phone? Well, you don't. The phone should be tracked. You should, as a parent, have the ability to know where your child's phone is at all times. You should have the code to determine when they're going to be on that phone, when they're not. And again, if they're at school, do they need all those apps? Probably the answer is probably not. Yeah. They probably just need the use of the phone, maybe text messages, maybe even not text messages. But again, very simple to do on an iPhone. I could only assume the Android platform's the same way. And I think really what it all comes back to, and Josh hit the nail on the head, is being just involved as much as humanly possible. You own that phone, you own that device, you own the internet service, you own the Wi-Fi at the house, you own it all. And not worrying about respecting your child's privacy with regards to their electronics.
And if they want to keep the phone, I just thought about Captain Diaz is correct. You can go to the App Store and in their settings, turn off the App Stores, delete the apps, delete everything, and just turn it into a phone, and that's it. Now, can kids get around it? Can they go to school and do it? We can't stop them from doing the things that they're going to do ultimately.
Yeah, you can't hover.
Exactly. So they're going to do it, but if the question for me, if they're not going to give me that, I'm going to say, well, you're not going to do it in my house. Yeah. And you're not going to do it on my phone, and you're not going to do it that way.
That's so good. And this one, I know this one's more of a, every parent has to make their decision, but it's still a good question. And I think maybe if you guys have any stats on this, but we had a parent ask, what would be the prime age to allow your child on social media platforms, that's a tough one.
Well, I'm going to take a stab at that, guys. I don't know if there's a perfect answer for that, and we've actually been asked that quite a few times. We did a lot of our research for today's workshop on a site that Josh mentioned. It's stopbullying.gov. It's maintained by the federal government. It's unbelievable resources, and I don't remember if that was touched upon on the website, but whether it was or not, it's such a tough question, and there are so many different opinions. It's so tough.
How about for you guys personally? what would you do as a parent? What do you think, Captain? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'll ask both of you. What in your experience as a father, what would you recommend? Being your own personal opinion, which I have my own opinion, I'll give them as well. But what would be your personal opinion for you?
Well, for me personally, I've got 2 young kids, and they are not allowed to be on any social media at all. Both of them use old cell phones that my wife and I have that don't make calls now. So in a sense, they're little mini tablets. There are old cell phones that they play on. They don't have any social media, and there, of course, there's always a but in every story.
Sure.
The but here is my son wanted to start playing games. And a lot of these games, it's not like the old Nintendo when you play Super Mario Brothers and it's not connected to the internet, right?
Yeah.
That's what we played. Yeah. Now it's connected to the internet. And again, you don't think of the gaming as social media, or you don't think of the gaming as the internet, but it is. It's social media. And I got this stark wake-up call 2 months ago when he comes in, complaining or almost crying or sad that somebody's yelling at him.
Yeah.
So with that said, for us, our kids aren't old enough to start doing it yet, so I don't have the personal experience to tell you, hey, we felt our kids were ready at this age. It's a very, very difficult call. I mean, my only recommendation is put it off as long as humanly possible to let your kids, give them more time to mature, more time to process things that us 3, all adults watching, can process. And, our kids simply are just too young to process those things. Do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I would say the biggest word is communication. Having, like you said, that open line of communication, knowing your child. What is the purpose of the social media? Why do they want to get on it? If your child has a solid foundation and they're telling you that these are the friends that are on it and this is what's going on, and Elevate Youth Group has a site and they're doing this.
It's true.
Then like we're saying, it's different for every kid. It's different for every situation. But for me personally, I would want to over-communicate. What is your purpose? What are you doing on it? What friends are going to be on there? If they are, especially whatever age you start them at, that's where you start, like, okay, if you're going to, I'm going to have the password. I'm going to see your friends. I'm going to see what they're posting and everything. So I don't know if there's an age. I think instead of an age, I think you need to know your kid, and they have to have a solid foundation, if that makes sense.
That's very good. No, I think for me, I already have a 25 and a 21-year-old, and both of them have already gone through the whole social media. I think key is, number one, you have to know your child. You have to know what the driving or the agenda of wanting an account would be. I've also been the father who has grounded my son and took his phone away for 1 year, and you have to be extreme depending on the circumstances. And when my children had accounts, let's say Instagram, Facebook, I had access to those accounts. And my wife and I have always been those, let me see your phone. Like, it was always at a drop of a hat. Hey, give me your phone real quick. And we knew the passcode to get in the phone. And then we'd go through all of their different communication pipelines on the phone. And so I think being very much involved in this tech world, and we are living, I think, more than ever in 2020 in a tech world, and it's about to increase more. So I would say, number one, you have to feel comfortable that your child is mature enough, like the captain said, to be able to sustain what they're going to see, and also realize that they're going to probably see things, because now it's not just about having a social media account with your name on it. I mean, if you go to the homepage or the Instagram stories, I mean, there is half-naked people on those stories, and you just have to be aware that your kid is watching this stuff, but you can also check the history on all the things that they're watching. There's activity for both Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There is a history link where you can see everything they've been watching, and I think that's so key.
Unfortunately, they can delete that too.
Yeah.
And what to add on to what you said, the Instagram and stuff like that, Facebook too, there's filth all over it.
Yeah, sure.
And you can search whatever you want. You can go to Explore under Instagram and type any words you want. and it's going to show
It's
you videos
gonna
and
pop it.
pictures of everything.
Yeah.
So it's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank both of you. You know, a lot of these new questions that came in, you guys covered. So parents, great job on the questions and great job on the information, because I'm telling you, just about every question was already covered that these wonderful people are asking. Let me make sure.
I will add one
Yeah.
thing while you're reading.
Yeah.
If you have any other questions, I don't know if we mentioned it. I don't know if you can put it on the screen or.
Yeah, we can do that.
If you have questions, like my captain said, we have a juvenile team where it consists of the school deputies, a sergeant. You can email us at jteamscv@lasd.org. If you have any other questions that weren't answered, or you
Yes.
thought of one later,
Yes.
or anything at all, if you need help, you can call the station. You can ask for Deputy Koch. You can email. We have tons of resources. And like I said, this is just a small little snippet of all the stuff that we can offer.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's our time. We're going to take a 10-minute break, but I want to thank, and if you can give some emoji hand claps, emoji hand raises, and thank our wonderful Sheriff's Department. Thank you, Captain Diaz, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here this morning. I know that you have such a huge heart for our community, Santa Clarita. We love what you're doing. We support what you're doing. Elevate Church is behind our Sheriff's Department. And if there's anything that we can ever do, just know that you can call on us at any moment, and we're here for you. So thank you for taking time with us today. And as well, Deputy Koch, thank you so much. You guys are amazing, really.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the partnership, and it's been a great experience. This is our first time doing it with you guys, and I think it's going to be very successful. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, family, go ahead, take a 10-minute break. Go get some coffee, get some snacks, cuddle up on the couch again. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. God bless you. Thank you again for being with us today. If you missed the first session, which was on cyberbullying with parenting our children in crisis, you got to go back and watch it. It's on our YouTube. But right now, we're going to get to the other portion of just parenting and schooling and helping your children with maybe some behavioral things that maybe you're seeing in your children, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual, whether it's just practical tools. And so what I have with me today, who I have with me today, is a group of people that are not only amazing parents that love their kids, but who also understand that there is an adjustment with everything that's happening in this world. And I started the verse, a Bible verse this morning, and it's the theme of what I'm talking about today. And it's in Proverbs. I'm going to read it again. It's in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. It says, "Train up a child in the way they should go, and when he or she is old, they won't depart from God." This verse is possibly the most relevant verse in the history of creation. And let me explain why. It says, train up a child. We are now, as parents, have to be parent, spouse, teacher, employed, and then still try to coach our children through so much. And so today I brought some amazing people that are professionals in the education system, and I'm going to let each one introduce themselves. I'm going to start with George, way on the other side. George.
Hey, everybody. My name is George Flores. I am a special education teacher. I have 3 kids, ages 7, 4, and 10-month-old.
Thank you, George. Hi, my name is Kyla. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I'm a grandma. And
Yay.
I'm also a school administrator, and I serve in the church and children's ministry. I'm a children's ministry director.
Hi, my name is Denise Fernandez. I'm also a wife and a mother. I have 4 adult children and 1 adorable grandson. I am a special needs teacher. I have been working with children for 20 years.
And hi, my name is Ann Crew. I am the director of Elevate Christian Academy here at Elevate Church. I am a mother of 6 children, and I have also 1 grandchild.
That is awesome. And you too, my wife.
And my name is Virginia Ruiz. And I am a mother, wife, a pastor, and a teacher. And I just love the topic. It's always been a really important topic when it came to raising our children. And so I'm excited to be part of this panel. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, and we're going to be talking about different topics from, mental health of our children, behavior. We want to talk about, how do we manage even time, because time is so key right now, and making sure that we have structure. And just before I begin to talk to everyone, I know that every single one of you are having to adjust how you do life at home. With COVID, obviously, we've been on this shutdown for, gosh, how many months are we now? 8 months, 7 months? I've lost track since March of this year. And I could only imagine the unprecedented things that have happened beyond COVID, and then having still finding ways to keep the children, keeping our youth, keeping the harmony of our marriages, our families intact when there's so much pressure, and not just that, but when there's so much division too in our world. But I believe that we have hope in Jesus. And when Jesus is the anchor of your house, when he's the centerpiece of the home, man, we have victory. We can overcome all the challenges that we face in this life. And we also have to understand that, life has changed when it comes to the tech world, because now our children are being taught through Zoom, and they're on the
on the computer for bazillion hours a day. Then they want to watch TV. Then they want social media. And so that interaction is just so difficult. And it really does. I'm going to be very honest with you, and I'm sure some of our wonderful guests will maybe give some stats, but I know that there is a high percentage, definitely way over 50% of children and youth who are so disconnected with human touch. And we have to talk about that today. And so I'm going to start off with Denise. And Denise, let's just talk. I know we've had several meetings within our team and just talking about the different topics we want to hit. But why don't you just go ahead and just share what's on your heart?
Yeah, so just, going off of what you already said is we can see that the world is drastically changed, and it's no fault of ours, it's no fault of our children, the way life currently is. We know with what's going on that there has to be a high need of flexibility and grace. It's what we all need right now, especially our children. We know right now what we need to do is we need to have realistic expectations for our children. We need to remember that their routines have totally changed. They're not able to wake up in the morning, get ready for school, they can't see their friends, everything has changed in their lives. And so since with all that change, we need to be watching how they're feeling. How are they reacting to this? And we need to know that our children are watching us. They're looking for clues from us. How are the adults handling this? They're going to feed off of the way we handle things. What are we saying? What are we doing? And that's going to affect our children. Right now, our kids are starting to feel anxious. When they look at, why can't I go see grandma anymore? Why can't I see all my friends? Why can't we go to see our families? They're wondering, what's going on? And we need to start realizing what's going on in our children. I have a slide you can put on. We can start to look that all these changes, we'll start to see our kids are anxious. They're worried. We might be able to see their behavior is changing because they're irritable, they're cranky. Maybe they're starting to exhibit more immature behaviors. They want to come sleep in our bed now, even though they've been sleeping on their own.
Oh, that's good.
Our children might be feeling apprehensive or anxious. There may be low motivation. Maybe they don't want to eat as much. They're not sleeping well. I recently heard from another teacher, and she was telling me how she's so busy, she doesn't have time for her child as much anymore. She makes a quick dinner, she sits down at the table while her child eats, but she's on the computer working. And it wasn't until she went to the trash and she noticed that there was food in a napkin just chewed up in the trash. And she went to talk to her daughter, and her daughter said, I've been doing that for 2 weeks, I don't want to eat. And, she realized that she had to make a change. She had to put the computer away, sit down, and have a meal with her child. Her child was going through so much at that time because she saw the stress in her mom. So, my next slide. What do we do with, the way our children are dealing with all this? Well, we need to remember we're in a pandemic. Information is changing daily. There is no playbook, there's no how-to, there's nothing, this has never been done before. So we could say that we're flying the plane and building it at the same time.
That's good. That's so true. Wow.
Yeah. So with all the uncertainty and unrealistic expectations on our family, we need God's grace right now.
Yeah.
So my verse, 2 Corinthians 12:9, and he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. God is saying in this verse that he has enough grace to carry us through the storms we're in. He's reassuring us that he has not let us go. And his grace is more than enough. It's exactly what we need right now to meet all our challenges. And once we admit that we're weak, there's God. He's willing and more than able to carry us through the hard times. So when we see these behaviors, we know that the behaviors and their changes in our kids are only temporary. And the best way of dealing with them is allowing our children to talk about them. And I know the police officers earlier, that's exactly what they touched on. We need to be talking to our kids. We need to ask them what's concerning them. And we need to be okay with what they tell us. We need to let them know that the way that they are feeling is okay, that we can stay calm, we can listen to them, and we need to give them answers, or we need to be able to tell them, I don't know.
Yeah. If you guys, I know that you want something to...
You know, I'm an educator, so I'm at home teaching, and I have my wife who's providing support for 2 kids that are learning simultaneously. So it's overwhelming. And, you know, God has really convicted me in this season and said, you know, you need to back up your wife in prayer. You need to encourage her. When you see her doing something good or correct or even an effort in itself, because, again, this is new terrain that none of us have experienced before. And so even when it comes to our kids, you know, we have to have that grace. I have to remind my wife every once in a while, like, well, you know, usually he would be in a physical classroom. Right now he's in a chair looking at a screen all day long. And, you know, he's going to get antsy. And he's my son, so definitely he's got a lot of energy and is off the walls. But, you know, so it's just important, you know, as a unit at home to be backing each other up in prayer, especially my wife. She's got a 10-month-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old. Kudos to the women that are doing it and holding down the fort for their husbands that are working, or vice versa, whatever the situations may be. And even for single mothers out there, kudos to you guys. I'm sending you good vibes, muscles right there for you. There you go. So, yeah.
Yes, and so we see all this stress that's going on, so I know a lot of you are thinking, yes, I see my kids are stressed, but what do I do? So I have one more slide. Another way, so a way we can relieve this stress in our kids is we need to bring back normalcy. Our children are craving predictability. One of the most important things that our children need right now is a sense of routine back in their life. And we need to do this as soon as possible. In a lot of ways, they thrive in an environment with predictability, with certainty. You know, we all need this, and children do too. But when we say routine, you need to know that routine does not mean rigid. Okay? It needs to be the flow, but not the focus of what we're doing. We always have to make adjustments to those routines, to our schoolwork, to our work, to what we're doing as a family, to our mealtime. All of that has to be in a routine, but with flexibility. We know a lot of families have faced even greater challenges than, you know, we can think of. They've lost work, they've lost loved ones, their routine is thrown out, you know, and they're struggling in a lot of different ways. If your child is going through those things and they're online in school, you need to be honest. You need to talk to the teacher, to the administrator. You need to let them know what's going on. You don't want to keep that inside and just keep pressuring your child to, you know, turn in your assignments, get up, get online. You know, be honest with the teacher, because an assignment can wait, but your child's well-being cannot.
That's good.
You know, we need to know that that's more important right now. And during these times, like I said, we need to ask for God's grace, and we need to be willing to give grace to our children, to our spouses, our families, and our teachers. God's grace can cover all of our shortcomings and our failures and our, you know, weaknesses.
Yeah.
You know, to get through this together.
And Denise, I want to throw this question out to you, because I know you're organized on steroids. Like, you're one of those, like, Lord forbid if pencil number 3 comes out of place. You know, I know that our children thrive when they know what's expected of them.
Yes.
Each day. Mm-hmm. And I think a problem, and I'm sure parents probably out there are going to agree with me. I think as a parent, we can get so comfortable of just letting our kids do their homework when they want to do homework, eat when you want to eat, sleep or take a nap when you want to take a nap, you know, play video games when you want to play video games, and because maybe to them that's grace. Like, let me just show my kid grace because we're in a pandemic, and let's just let them go ahead and have fun. But that is the worst, in my opinion, the worst thing that any parent can do is to not have a structure of the day. Because if you talked about bringing some form of normality, well, if the only way to bring some form of normality is to have an expectation of each day with a schedule. How do you do that?
Well, you need to look at your day. What are you capable of doing? So if there's, there's parents still that are working online, so they cannot be with their child between 9 and 12. I need to be, in my office. I need to be working. So you need to first look at your day and what are you able to do, and then look what your child is supposed to be doing, and together figure out that schedule, Yes, the kids, exactly what you're saying, they need that normalcy, they need that schedule, that routine, but build it together, and put those in there. And then when something comes up, because we know something is going to come up, and 3 o'clock we're supposed to be doing homework, but now my employer says I need to be on Zoom at 3 o'clock, the whole day gets, thrown
off.
So that's what I'm talking about. That's when grace comes in. It's not grace for every day. I give you grace and you do what you want. No, grace is for those times when, the unexpected happens.
Sure.
Very
good.
But having a routine is so important to the children right now.
Yeah. Real quickly, does anybody want to add to my question? Anybody at all? Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
In the homeschooling circle, we do structure, and I do advise our parents to have structure and not schedule. So the structure is we get up in the morning and we have our breakfast, and then we are downstairs at the dinner table, and we're going to have maybe a little devotional, and then we're going to we'll feed all the dogs, and then we'll start in on our math. If you notice, I didn't put any time according to,
that's good.
6 a.m., 7 a.m. We don't put any time attached to that. So that is our structure. Our structure is what we're going to do throughout the day.
It's the order of events.
The order of events, right. But we can change that all around. If something comes up and we were up really late doing homework, or Dad got home late and he wanted to spend a little time with us, and we're not able to get up, get dressed, get going by 7 in the morning, we still keep our structure. We just might start at 8:30 or at 9. And that gives us the flexibility, but it gives the kids the consistency in how they're going to learn that day and what they're going to be doing. And I have found that it gives them a lot of security, knowing that they know what's coming next.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be my encouragement to don't get too caught up on the time frame, but more so the order of events.
That's good. That would be a good definition of grace.
And so I'm on the other spectrum, because we are on a time frame for public schools. So I think for us, it would be good to create a visual schedule for our kids, just so that they can see, okay, what do we do at this time? When is my lunch? And they can come with that expectation and just knowing what comes next. So
that's so good. And why don't you start? And just keep going, since you're already kind of there. Okay. What are some things that you want to talk to parents in this season of parenting and teaching?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of time to chat with different parents, people that are charter public schools, so they do homeschool, but they're run by the public schools. People that are doing distance learning, which are public schools at home, and then people that want to kind of do their own thing with a PSP or individual, and that would just be traditional homeschool. All parents across the board are really struggling with the idea that they have to actually teach their children. They feel so inadequate. They remember fractions from 5th grade, and I'm doing that right now, you guys, again. Gosh. And it is difficult to remember all the rules and how we do these steps, and then having to teach it to our children. It can be so overwhelming. But I do have to say that society has got it in our brain that those things are separate, that teaching and parenting are two different things. And that's just not what the Bible says. The Bible says that we are one, those two things are one, and they are meshed together, that the parents are the teachers. And so I have a couple of verses that came to mind. One of them is Deuteronomy 6, 6 through 7, and it says, "And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home, when you're on the road, when you're in your minivan, when you're going to church. Talk about them all the time, when you're going to bed and when you get up." The second verse that came to mind to remind us that parents are actually teachers is Psalm 78, 5 through 7. And that says, "He commanded our ancestors to teach them to their children, so that the next generation might know them, even the children not yet born, and they in turn will teach their own children. So each generation should set its hope on anew on God, not forgetting his glorious miracles and obeying his commands." So I just think those show us that God has given us the ability, the authority, and the power to teach our children.
Very good.
So with that in mind, people come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do about structure at home. The kids are running wild. We don't know about curriculum choices. How do we choose what to teach our kids or when to teach them? What's important?" The parents are exhausted. They're just like, I was up all night doing curriculum. I got up early to start, and my little one threw up. Now what am I going to do? We're behind. The parents are just exhausted. I am proud to say that there are a lot of fathers that are beginning to step up and take charge. And
That's right.
Yeah. We've got some dads that are great scientists, and they love science, and they're teaching their kids that. And so really, I just go ahead and let them know that it's okay to be not okay. That you as parents, along with your children, are going through the same thing. The change is overwhelming. The not being secure in what we're doing tomorrow. And I think we just need to go back to day by day.
That's good.
Day by day. What are we doing today? What are we doing next? Let's let our kids know that we're here as parents and we're here as a family together. I think when kids don't know what's happening next, they do definitely need to know that whatever it is, we're going to go through it together. So whether you're homeschooling traditionally or distance learning or charter school, I think that's the main point, that we are together as a family. And so we start in our house talking about the Crew family. Well, the Crew family is going to go get some ice cream at Rita's. We had a great day. Or the Crew family is going to go to bed early today. We are exhausted. And so we start just labeling ourselves as a family unit out loud.
That's
and
good.
The kids start to identify, like, any of the craziness going on in the world. I'm okay because I'm part of the Ruiz family.
Yeah.
I'm okay because I'm part of the Crew family. I'm okay because my family is solid.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what we need to show our children. And then we have great resources as far as Elevate Christian Academy.
Please explain that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elevate Christian Academy is a traditional homeschool, but we also offer enrichment classes on Thursdays for your kids if they need to get out of the house for a little while. But we also offer support to parents. So if you have any questions about curriculum or just structure at home or things you might be able to do, tips and tricks of the trade, you are more than welcome to go to our website and just contact us. We'd make an appointment and have a 20-minute Zoom appointment with you and really discuss those things that you're struggling with. And I think that's what sets Elevate Christian Academy apart from the other traditional homeschools, is that we are a call center, as you could say, to help parents kind of navigate what they're going through.
Yeah, and if we can have our commentators post the website on our comments on all the platforms, I would really appreciate that. Actually, you had your first outing this past week, right?
Well, we've done a bike ride together, and then we went and did a birdhouse build in the park.
That is awesome.
Yeah, we did that. And then we started our enrichment classes. We did that on Thursday. So we're doing Spanish, ukulele, and classic art, and the kids were amazing.
Yeah, and we have some amazing teachers that come in and teach those subjects. And so all they have to do is go to the website if they want to become a part of the. So you have the enrichment, and then you have the. What are the types?
Yeah. So for the parents that are joining us today, we're going to go ahead and waive the $50 membership fee. You'll just go to our website and click on the events tab, and then just RSVP for anything you think you might be interested in.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Did someone want to add something to what we're sharing? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I
Kyla.
just wanted to talk about self-care for parents.
Very good.
And everyone else in the family. And I just wanted to say that as we're going through this pandemic, don't wait until the vaccine comes out to start being happy, planning joy. Do it now, right now. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of love and power and a sound mind. And so we have to remember that as we are adulting, because the kids look to us. Resiliency is, being strong, going through trauma. But not everyone starts with the same baseline.
That's good.
Some people are super, super strong. They have not experienced a lot of trauma in their life. They have a bad day, they pop up, they have a good day, no problem. And then there are some who have many, many bad days and who experience death or loneliness or depression. And so it's important as adults, as parents, to do check-ins, with your family on a daily basis, like the child who was throwing the food in the trash can, just a check-in with how are you doing, where are you, how are you feeling, like you said, validate the feelings, go from there. And then as believers, we're supposed to seek ye the kingdom of God first, right? First.
That's right.
Matthew 6:33, and then all these things will be added unto you. So if you're fearful, if you're sad, if you're depressed, what's missing. You're not seeking God. Got to get on your knees. Devotion. I do not leave my house without spending time with the Lord. And I'm not religious about it, but it is on my mind first thing every day, because I just can't go into the world without worshiping him, going to my King, going to my Father, giving all my cares and troubles to my Daddy, right? Because we're supposed to be anxious for nothing, but with everything, with prayer and supplication, thanksgiving, make our requests known unto God, and he'll give us that peace. And so for self-care, you have to start with that. You have to start with your daddy. And then from there, you can lead your family, You're going to be real with your children. You're going to talk to them and be transparent, but they're going to have a place to go. They're going to have a hope, because children need to have positive adults in their family.
Yeah.
They need to have someone to go to who cares for them, who will give them a second chance, who have grace, who will forgive them, who are going to go through this trauma with them. And so I just wanted to share that for parents. And then, of course, you can do the usual physical activity, eat well, get sleep, have routines, because that makes things normal. Your kids, it's hard for them. They don't want to be home all day either. They don't want to be with you all day either, every single day. So you have to have fun with them as well, right? They have to have activities, enrichment. I'm so glad you're talking about your camp. They have to have activities like that. Are you involved in church? Are you in an online group? Are you going to services outside of Sunday worship? They need all of that. You need all of that, because you lead your family and you direct them. So I just wanted to give you that tidbit. Make sure your kids feel safe. Make sure they're calm. Make sure that they know that you love them. We all make mistakes. It's a 4-to-1 thing. We learn in our school district that for every one thing you say and you go, oh, I wish I didn't say that, just give 4 positives. And that kind of erases it, and makes the other person feel a lot better. So I just want to share that.
Very good, very good. Did you want to add something, Anne?
To self-care, the parents, I would schedule in very short breaks. So just 5-minute step-aways throughout your day. When we are done with one subject, I know the kids doing distance learning get breaks, right? Yes. So during that break time is an awesome time to really go outside, hang out with your pet for a minute, and then come back in. I think we're so used to calling breaks or self-care a day at the spa. Mm-hmm. But we don't have that these days.
Yeah. What is a spa?
And so I just want to encourage parents to take 5 or 10-minute breaks often throughout the day. Your kids can handle you stepping away for 5 minutes. Maybe they can't handle 2 hours because they're little, but a 5-minute break works, and they will appreciate you giving them 5 minutes of free play as well. So I think that helps a lot of younger parents with younger children. Those 5-minute breaks really help.
Is that where we say, Jesus, take the wheel and take care of our kids for 5 minutes?
That's it.
You know, one of the things that you mentioned, I think it was you, Denise, or Ann, I think the biggest issue we're seeing in society today with families is either a lost identity or a defined one. And I just think it's so key to really, define who you are as a family, because we talked about this in our meeting before we had this. We had a prep meeting, and we talked about emotional wellness. And anybody can talk about this. And I know that you love talking about this a lot, babe, about just having emotional health, having emotional wellness. And anyone here, especially those that work with, you're in the education, let's talk about that, because I think that there may be some parents that may be saying, man, I thought my kid was a little cray-cray before COVID, but now they're really crazy, you know what I'm saying? And behavior changes, and maybe for some other parents, it's like, you know what? These last 7 months have really helped me hone in on some behavioral issues and really focus on that. But let's just talk a little bit about just emotional wellness, behavior. When you don't have structure, you're going to have behavioral problems. That's for sure. Who wants to go? Anybody can take this.
I just wanted to say, if I didn't mention it before, that, parents, when you're at home and you're with your children and maybe they're acting up a little much, you have choices. You can either, discipline them, or you can give them positive reinforcement. And speaking to a therapist in preparation for today, they said that positive reinforcement actually helps students to learn more than discipline. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And what would that look like, in your opinion? So you just made that amazing statement.
Okay.
So what would that look like for a parent?
For a parent, it might be,
I
really like the way that you have finished your breakfast. You ate all your food today. You pushed in your chair, you put your dishes up, or I really like the way you made your bed. Or you have to be really specific, not like you did great or that was a good job, but really specific on the action.
Which that's how we normally talk in general, like, man, you're awesome. Oh, you're so cool. You're amazing. But to be more specific, that's good.
So they can repeat the action.
We've lost that language, of detail. That's so good.
I think we have to guide our families, even though we don't have little ones anymore, but we need to guide our family through hard times. And I think sometimes we are, like you said, kind of like we're very general, like you did amazing today, or there's kids that I believe that we don't encourage. Many times we don't encourage our kids to say how they're feeling. There's a lot of things. I've been reading so much and how kids are doing at home, and not only the little ones, but they were saying that kids in junior high, in high school, they're feeling suicidal because they can't be going out with their friends, and then sometimes we as parents don't understand, you're fine, you have, we have Jesus, and we do have Jesus, but I believe that we have to allow our children to speak of their, not just their mind, but sit down already not having an answer. Like, okay, how are you feeling today?
Allowing themselves to express themselves.
Yeah, and they said, I feel sad, and then we can say, what is there to be sad? You're 16, you're 17, and sometimes
you have food on the table, you have a bedroom.
Them, in Africa, they don't have food, and it's but I don't live in Africa, you know. So I think it's allowing our children to really, if we're gonna open up the communications, to be able to say and validate what they feel, and lead them through the Word of God. You know, Jesus said in John 16:33, he says, "In me you will have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but take heart, I've overcome the world for you." And I think it's talking to our kids, even talking to ourselves. To me, even though we're not parenting, it's I feel like what we already had some problems in families or with our children, now you realize, wow, everything is magnified.
Yeah.
And I believe that this pandemic came to magnify, the things that we were already dealing with, even with our children. And I think this is an opportunity for us to get closer to our children, to get closer to our youth, and I love what you guys are saying about, taking time and I think having devotion, like it could be 5 minutes devotion with the kids,
Very good. Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, I just wanted to go off of that. So one of the things we really focus on, doing the distance learning is starting the morning off with asking the children, how are you doing today?
That's good.
And when we first started, they all would just stare at the screen like, I'm fine. Like, they're
They're
not.
like, no one's ever asked me that.
Yeah, they're not used to answering it, and so we had to, we would create polls and ask them, okay, fill it in. How are you doing? And we'd put, different things in there, and things that we were okay. I'm tired. I'm sad. I'm angry. Not just, I'm fine. And then they had to tell us why they feel that way. What are you happy about? Or, why are you feeling tired? And having to explain that, because it's so important right now to make sure we're checking in with our kids. Like you said, how are you doing, and not accepting that I'm fine.
Yeah.
There's been times where, that check-in was going to be 5-10 minutes and it ends up being an hour. And now we didn't do reading, but that's okay because we are learning to talk about how we're feeling.
Yeah, and I like that because you know what? I think all the academics is academics are important, but character is everything. Not just the character, but even just their emotional stability. You can know how to do geometry, calculus, and all that stuff, but if you're emotionally unstable, if you don't know how to navigate through crises, and we'll get into the spiritual navigation of it too, but like, how do you? And I know that you, George, you work with a lot of youth, and there's parents out there that are watching that have youth, and I've known you to work with the most difficult, most challenging, most, angry youth. And maybe right now there's parents that have some youth that are angry because, listen, think about it. It's your senior year. You're not going to do prom. You can't go to football games. So there's this sense of like pushback and they don't know how to adapt. And I know that Denise said, I think as parents, we have to learn how to be the best, leaders now of our children and really guide them through it and have conversation like, hey, you know what, this is really what's going on, exposing it like we were talking with the sheriff's department today. Let's expose the reality of what we're living in today and know that it's temporary, it's not forever. But having conversations. But talk about that. How do you deal with youth that parents may have right now that are they're just rebelling? Like kids that would never rebel are now rebelling, having a bad attitude, etc. How do you deal with that?
One word, love. It's powerful. It's what caused the Father to send his Son to die. It was the fuel that led the Savior to the cross. And so, beyond it being a word, it's an action. And so I believe God has, taken this time, and there's a purpose behind it. Before the behaviors that we see our kids practicing today in our homes, they would do it at a physical school. But now we're stuck in a home all day long. I see how much energy my son has. And it's something that God is bringing to my attention because I have to figure out where to gear that energy. And I believe that some of you parents, especially with youth, teenagers, you guys are at a state where the issues have come to light and they're in your face. And again, the answer to that is love. We think about a teenager that is angry, or just anybody, a child, a teenager, an adult that's angry, that is maybe acting out in a violent way. We as an observer, we can become intimidated and turn away from that person. Or maybe there's a young person using drugs. As a parent, you would be hurt. Or you could even come with the mindset, I need to correct it, and so I need to provide correction. But in reality, all those behaviors are things that are happening because of underlying issues that are on internal, And I think what I've come to find that what can bring healing and freedom in those areas is love. So I came up with a little acronym to kind of help us out and figure out a way, how can we love our children? How can we love our teenagers? And so it says, the acronym is 3 C's and a D. It's not a great acronym, but it's the acronym, so you'll remember it, all right? And that first C stands for connection, And as of late, I've had a lot of parents approach me and say, well, I really don't know how to connect with my youth. And at first I was thrown off. I was like, man, I got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. I ain't got no teenagers, that I'm raising or anything like that. But I began to think about it, and God made it simple. He's like, look it, dummy. This is what it is real quick. Ready? You guys ready for the secret weapon of connecting with youth?
Yeah.
Drum roll, please. No, you guys don't have to. There we go. It is tacos. It's food. Food. Food is a life changer when it comes to teenagers.
That's good.
You can go out
so good.
and take a young person to eat, and that's just you connecting. In reality, connection is just you spending time with.
Yeah, and
with
don't
somebody.
take them to your restaurant. Take them to Chick-fil-A, In-N-Out, like the stuff they like.
Or what I like is, Instagram is a food haven. I know it's a place that we talked about is a lot of crazy stuff, but man, Instagram is amazing when it comes to food. You can find so much food and new places. Dave's Hot Chicken, I'm throwing you guys out there. I better get a residual. But anyways, yes, there are places out there that you guys can go to and, hey, let's go to this new spot to eat. You guys are eating, and I guarantee you that teenager on a full stomach will begin to open up. And that is an opportunity for you to have a conversation. I know they say that a key to a man's heart is his stomach. I believe the key to a teenager's heart is their stomach. So just, that's a strategy, just making connection. The next C stands for consistency. And it's probably the hardest one, especially in our busy schedules. I'm going to bring up a situation that I've been through personally. God granted me the favor to have influence over this young man, an angry teenager, violent. I think when I first met him, he talked a lot about my height and my lack of hair. But I had to be consistent in how I love that young man. And I had to be consistent in throwing out the invitation, hey, you should come to our church. And you know what? What had him say yes one time was I invited him over my home, and my wife cooked up a bomb.com meal. I remember what it was. It was breaded shrimp. The kid had never had shrimp before in his life. Lemon and tapatio. We did it. We made it happen, and the young man was happy. And I said, hey, bro, you want to go to church with me today? And he said, yes. And it was because of his stomach being full.
Wow.
And my wife's amazing cooking. Baby, I'm throwing you out there, too. I better get residuals. Okay, so, I was bringing him for months, and he would come and consistently, before it was me reaching out to him and say, let's come. And then it became him texting me and say, all right, are we going to church today? So with time, I'd bring him on the way to church. He's cussing up a storm. And I got discouraged. And a lot of times, very angry, aggressive. And I remember one service, I was sitting in that corner, and the young man was sitting right next to me. And I remember telling the Lord, God, what's the point of me bringing this young man if he's not even changing? And God convicted me, and he had me look to him. And when I looked to him, his hands were raised during worship. That's consistency. That's the
beautiful.
power of consistency. That's the power of love. I'm not going to cry, so I won't. The last C is community. And I think it's super important. You know, me as a father, I look towards other fathers and see if they're doing something better than I am. And sometimes we as parents, we get caught up in we have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. But if we see somebody that's stronger in an area where we're weak, that's an opportunity. And they're in our sphere of influence. Hey, let me talk to you real quick. What are you doing that I'm not? Or what are you doing that's working with your kids? And it's important to have those conversations. Not only is it important to have those conversations, but it's important to use the resources that we have. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a resource. Elevate Church. Our pastors are a resource. This workshop is a resource. You know, one of the greatest resources that we have at Elevate is Elevate Kids. Frank, I'm throwing you out there. I need residuals as well. No. And then we also have our Elevate Youth. You know, there's that saying, a village can raise a child. Take advantage of the resources that you have around you. Take advantage of the positive influences you have around you. Look at this panel, you know, and it's an opportunity. My last 3 C's and a D. The D stands for denying yourself. John 3:30. It says that he may become greater so that I may become less.
Yeah.
So when it comes to loving your child, I know, parents, you have been losing hair. But in reality, this is a season in which God is calling you to deny yourself. You know, that moment where I wanted to give up on that young man, I came to God first with how I felt. I said, God, I want to give up. I'm tired of bringing him. He's a brat, straight up. And God took those feelings, and he did something with it. And he allowed me to deny myself in that. So I just want to encourage you, 3 C's, connection, consistency, community, and denying yourself. And that's the key to connecting with the youth of today.
That's awesome. That is so good, really. That has some grips to hold on to and really do something with it. And I love the whole thing about food. You're right. I didn't realize it until you said it, but whenever I take my kids, or have taken when they were younger, out to eat, they open up, because when you're eating, it's almost like you're isolated together. You're going to have something to talk about, right? So thank you for that information. I think that it's practical, but it's powerful. I'm telling you. And it doesn't matter. I think you can take your kid out from, 7 years old, 6 years old, and how are you feeling? Allowing them. And I think this is where I can say that, being someone that grew up in a home where you could not express how you feel, I have grown up to be a person that has almost learned like how just to move on and not just address the feeling. And so I think that maybe some of you watching today, maybe you were that parent where you grew up in a home where you could not express, how you feel. I think if someone were to ask me if you can, do this all over again with raising your kids, what would that be? There's a few things, but I think the main thing would be to allow my children to express how they felt, because unfortunately, sometimes Christianity will teach you that everything just needs to be faith forward. And faith forward is good. It's not a bad thing, but it should not be a lifestyle. It should be a moment of different scenarios. When you go through any form of trauma, hurt, pain, you have to stop. It's kind of like when you think about a plane. When a plane crashes, which is very rare, but it happens. When a plane crashes, after they recover bodies, what's the first thing they look for at a crash site? They look for a black box, because the black box will tell you what happened before that plane went down. And I think giving our children that open space to express how they feel is the black box inside them that can tell you what has brought them to this behavior, what has brought them to this anger, and be that parent, which I've done this with my kid, like, hey, Isaac or Alexis, have I done anything to hurt you?
And I think that's part of denying yourself. Like, don't come up with an excuse. Like, even as you're raising your kids right now at home, teaching like, own up to your own mistakes. Own up to your own failures. Own up to your own, maybe anger issue moment. And come back and say, you know what, son, you know what, please forgive me. I was off today. I wasn't my best today. And I'm asking you to please forgive me. You know why? Because that's modeling it. Like someone said, you have to model in the season of crisis, how are you going to react or respond? You know what I'm saying? So let's talk a little bit more about that. Anybody want to go next? Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, so just going off of what you said, we need to know who we are. So, we can define ourselves, like you said, oh, you're organized, So in knowing those three, say three things about yourself, find the opposite of those. Those are going to be your triggers, So, okay, so disorganized, that's going to throw off my whole day.
That's good.
I'm going to react to my child differently, or, if you're somebody that needs to be punctual and now you're late. Are you really upset with your child, or is it that you're late? That's really, throwing your whole day off. And finding those triggers, can help you, because then you can explain it to your child. It's not you. I'm not upset with you. It's because of this, And we need to know, what are our triggers? What are our things that are going to throw off our whole day, And that can help us to have that self-care like you're talking about, to make sure, okay, what do I need to do so that now the day is on time? What do I need to do so that I'm organized, so that those little triggers don't come up?
Yeah, can you maybe give a quick example? Like, what would be a trigger? Let's say you're a parent, you're at home. What would be some triggers? Just some things that maybe they're not thinking about, that they don't see as a trigger, but in reality, it's a trigger.
Yeah. Well, each of us are different. We all have different personalities, which then leads to something, a different kind of trigger. But it could be, for a mom, maybe you didn't get to wash the dishes, you didn't get to mop, something like that. Your routine of waking up to a clean house was not there, So now, you're rushing, trying to get it done, you're upset, you have to get the child on the computer, or you need to get the, lesson started. And so the whole day was thrown off, but not because you're upset at the child, but because things didn't happen the night before. We need to realize those things that trigger us. And everybody's is different. It could be organization. It could be being late. It could be being unprepared. Some of us want to, have the house clean because the child's going to be on Zoom and they're going to be looking at the background. And,
That's so true.
We've seen, grandparents sleeping on the couch, a little one jumping up and down, Some children are out in the backyard, because the parent, other things are going on inside the house. So those things can set a parent off. It could be, the doorbell ringing. There's so many different things for different people, and everybody has to take the time to find out what does it for you.
Yeah.
And I think it comes to go back to what you said, George, the denial part, because sometimes we are making our houses more chaotic because it's what are they going to think of me? We're not going to submit this lesson. We're not thinking about our child and how it stresses our child. We're thinking about, it's going to reflect me as a parent. And I think we're living in times when we need to live not out of that reflection of like according to our children and what they're not doing or what, I remember when my kids were little and I decided to be a homeschool parent one year, which was the worst year of my life. But I didn't do well because I was working and doing everything, but I was like, and I remember sometimes it was midnight and I was working with Isaac, but it was because I didn't want it to reflect my bad parenting. Like, they're gonna know that I'm not good at that. And I remember that it was so stressful. And so I think there's a lot of things happening at homes right now because there's parents that they have like 4 kids. I was only dealing with 1 kid and I was going insane. So I just want to encourage you that you find out like beyond the triggers, like, do I care so much that, like you said, that we're not going to do this assignment and then and not being hard on yourselves. Like, it's okay not to be okay. We're going to have those dates, and that the kids learn the grace, because that would be the great, they give us actually grace. So I just encourage you, parents, get up in the morning, get in the Word, because I believe that without us trying to, we need to show our children, we need to show, how do we do it when we're stressed? And that's what the whole house is chaotic, because I'm stressed, so therefore my children are stressed, and then we're praying for God to bring peace, but then I'm not. But I'm the one trying to be in control of everything. And so I would say, just give up, your control, trying to make everything perfect, and just adjust to life and enjoy your children. This only happened once. We're living in a pandemic, and this is not gonna, it's gonna be like this for a while. So just enjoy it.
And I just want to piggyback on what you said. I think we forget as parents is that we're the thermostat of the house. And you control the temperature. And I think as we're just talking here, and we talked about this word model, please understand, and this is whether you have little ones or teenagers, because I've already had both, right? I've already been there, done that, and I can say that my kids aren't perfect, but let me tell you something, they're pretty awesome. They're amazing people today. They're amazing adults. You have to understand that your kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. And right now, you have to be the most amazing, truthful doer, meaning, do you spend time in the Word? Do you spend time in prayer? Do you show them that you're also human and you can express your feelings and express your forgiveness, your apologies, and really showing them that this is an open portal and of communication. For example, my wife and I, what we had for years, we had what was called, Monday night family night, right? And we did that for how many years would you say?
15 years.
About 15 years, we did Monday family night. But Monday family night was a night where our kids can express anything. It's the only day they could express it. It was the only hour they could express it.
They were saving it for us.
And I told them this. I said, this is your opportunity to share anything you want, and we will not react to it, no matter how bad, how ugly, how nasty it may be, no matter if you're offended at us. This is your safe space for this hour, and I want you to share anything you want, what you did, whatever. it could be something we didn't want to hear. And our promise, our vow was, we're not gonna. You know what that did? It trained them to be open to tell us when they were in trouble or doing something that was very, very out of their character. But it wasn't just open communication. The reason they looked forward to Family Monday night was because it wasn't just, let's sit in a room and let's talk about our problems. They knew that right after that, it was family night. So it was either, movies. Always we ordered food or cooked food and made it a fun environment. So don't just make it a family meeting, because that can become so painful. Because you're talking about serious things. There has to be, you have to sandwich it. You have to end it with fun. You have to end it with love. You have to end it with laughter, because if it's just a serious conversation and then everybody goes to their rooms, let me tell you something, the doors are going to shut in the future to open that up again. So just something I want to share about that. Who else has something? Go ahead.
Just to add to that, in our home, we did side-by-side counseling, and shoulder to shoulder is actually what it's called. And I have found that is the easiest way to get our teens and our tweens to talk, shoulder to shoulder. So if you're thinking about, gardening, right? So I call one of my kids to come over and help me out with something. We're bending over, in the dirt, shoulder to shoulder. And you'd be surprised at what comes out of their little mouths when you're shoulder to shoulder. There's something about a parent just looking right at the kid that shuts them down.
Yeah.
So if you can think about activities that are shoulder to shoulder, we've had the best conversations in my car, driving them to and from places. But if you'll notice, that's a shoulder to shoulder kind of situation, right? Waiting in line somewhere, that's also shoulder to shoulder. So Ethan has had great conversations with us 6 feet apart in line to get into a store lately. And so I wanted to encourage you, that was just a helpful tip, that if you can arrange an activity that is shoulder to shoulder, children want to know that they are needed, especially the teens and the tweens. So let them help you. Let them, it'll start off with, hey, can you help me? But before you know it, it'll be, hey, Mom, do you need help with that?
Yeah.
And my answer is always yes. I can totally bring in that box. I can totally, clean up the desk or feed the dogs. But I notice that when I start doing something, Ethan will jump in and say, oh, did you want me to help you with that?
That's good.
I could very easily say, no, keep doing what you're doing. But instead I say, yeah, come help me.
That's awesome.
And then we have a conversation about it. So I just wanted to encourage you all. That's a small tip on how to get these teens and tweens to kind of open up.
We have a lot of questions. Oh my gosh, a lot of questions came in. Let me throw some out there, and we'll keep them short, sweet, and simple because of time. Let me see some good, juicy ones. There's a lot. Wow. Let's start with this one. What tools do you recommend to help me navigate teenage behavior changes? Is there anything out there that you guys recommend, resources for teenager behavior changes?
I would say read. As a parent, we need to educate ourselves. Many times, because we're Christian, we think that our children should be perfect. They're hormonal. We cannot forget that they are hormonal when they're in the teenage years. And so to me, what I have done personally is read books, and then also allow them to have their bad moment. Sometimes they would wake up with attitudes, and then I either had a choice to join them with my attitude or educate myself. So why are you feeling like that? Or, I wanted to know why, what happened from last night to this morning, what happened?
So what resources?
I will always send people to learn. If you don't buy books, go to Focus on the Family. It has everything.
FocusOnTheFamily.org.
And it has all resources when it comes to family, parenting, what's going on now. Like, to me, to this day, that has been a great resource. And then the books that they recommend.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. I think you've been literally, since I can remember our kids being little, you've been literally educating yourself through Focus on the Family for a bazillion years. And it's a great ministry. I'm telling you, there's so many resources on raising teenagers, communication. They recommend a lot of books. Because of time, I won't get into my books, but I encourage you to go to FocusOnTheFamily.org and you can get information. How do I navigate my teenagers' independence? For instance, at what point do I let them make their own choices, even though I know they're bad choices? Come on, scholars.
In our home, I pulled back on commenting on their decisions unless it was something endangering themselves or others, or something that went directly against our belief in the Word of God. So when it comes to what they want to wear, how they want their hair, I'd let all of that go. There were some shorter shorts on some days, and we had to tell them that was the principle was that we were not in modesty, so they went back to change those. But I did really let them make a lot of the decisions along the way, only the ones that were against what we believed as a family, our core values, and that something that would endanger them or others is where we put our foot down. But I'm married to a security guard, Sully, and he's we were a very strict family, and yet he let them be them as individuals. So I think the first thing is ask yourself, what are you trying to control? What part of them what part of their decisions don't you like?
That's good.
I mean, obviously, their decision to do drugs is unacceptable in both spirit and in truth. So it's unacceptable. We need to get them help right away. But if they're deciding that they want a tattoo, if they're deciding that, and they're just having talks, right? Because they can't do that till they're 18, but they're just talking about it. I wouldn't go overboard with that. I would really have a conversation like, oh, really, what would you choose for a tattoo, and what does that mean to you? Why would you do that? Or where would you put that? And so then you start to get them thinking about the decisions that they're making. That would probably be a bad decision, but now they're talking about it, and they can almost talk themselves out of that decision.
I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I
George.
think okay, I don't have a teenager yet, but I work with youth. But I think, for example, I was thinking of my children when they first learn to walk. They're going to wobble. But I need to let them have that time of being independent. And they're going to fall. But the important thing is when they do fall, I respond and I go and I approach and I pick them up. So I think when it comes to independent decisions, you have to think, okay, if they fail, what is the outcome going to be? And ultimately, if it's going to hurt them, then it's not something I'm going to let you decide independently. But more so, okay, let's see what the outcome is, and if there's failure, will that failure hurt them, or will they learn from it? So that's my perspective as of now.
Yeah, and I honestly think that, your youth are going to make bad choices. You can't control every single minute of the day, every hour, there's just no way to control all of it. So I think for me, it's basically what Ann was saying is just what's the level of a bad choice they're about to make, and do our best to talk it out. Or, if you already, if you haven't, listen, I'm a firm believer it's never too late. And so if you've never had core values for your family, then start today. Like, what does your family stand for? And express what your family stands for, and talk what your family stands for, and model what your family stands for. And I think that when you have, let's say, the family Monday night, like, pick a night. It's never, like, they're never too old, to do this. Even if you have youth that are like, man, that's so stupid. It starts out being stupid, but eventually they're going to be like, man, this was fun. They're going to appreciate it. They're going to appreciate the fact that you created structure. Remember, I don't care if they're 7 years old or if they're 17 years old. Every child craves structure, and you have to create that structure. Here's another question. How do I best handle stress of working a full-time job and homeschooling? And you own a company.
I do. I own a small corporation here in Southern California, and it is within the film industry, so it's 24/7, and so it does get stressful. I think I do what we talked about earlier, and that is that we have an order of events in our home, but the time, I never attach a time to it. So sometimes we're doing math at 6 p.m., but we're not doing math because it has to get done. We're doing math because that's the time we have to do math. So it still is in a relaxing kind of way where we're doing math. As far as stress in work and homeschool, Ethan just sits with me. So I've done this with 6 kids. They just kind of grew up in this self-employed homeschool situation. So it's okay to start to teach your kids how to sit alongside you and so they're sitting alongside you, reading their book and doing their homework, and you're sitting alongside them doing your work. So Ethan and I literally sit side by side. He's 13. He does his stuff. I do mine. He leans over and says, hey, Mom, oh, who's texting you? And I'm like, mind your business. And then I lean over and say, are you done with your math? And he's like, I got it, Mom. And so, that's the best way to do it, I think, is not to try to separate. And this is where I really wanted to emphasize is that we try to separate work and children. We try to separate teaching and parenting. And the separation, I think, is what's really hurting us. So bring them into your work office. Bring them into your living room. Maybe you can do work in your living room and just kind of work together.
This was another. You have something? Go ahead.
Yeah. Just want to add on to that. So I know right now there's a lot of families that everybody's on the kitchen table. Like she's saying, mom's on the computer working. There's 1 or 2 children also, on the computer. And parents have been able to create their own little cubicles, They sell those science projects, little 3x, they fold like that, so children can have their space, not to separate, but just to allow them to be able to focus.
Yeah.
They can have headphones that have the microphone where they're hearing their teacher, they're responding, and the whole family is there together, but they're all able to focus on what they're doing.
Very good.
That can help a lot of the, stress of while the parent's at work, the child's in school, be together, but allow your child to have their focus, because the children that don't have that, I'll see them, they're looking off and the TV's on over there and they're staring and they're back to the teacher, they're looking at what someone's cooking, so children need that space to be able to focus, and that'll allow the parent to give them their
That's
time.
structure. That's more structure too. It brings some normality. Here's a really good question. How do I build an effective structure schedule for my children when I work away from home at my office and they're home alone?
Okay, say that again.
Yeah, so how do I build an effective structure and schedule for my children when I work away from home at my office and they are home alone?
I think it's like Ann said, creating that order of events. George also said a visual schedule, having that there for your child. Obviously, if they're home alone, they're, teenagers.
Yeah.
So having that for them, that schedule, it's like, I need to do this. It's either something I move, I check off, or, something I can look at, building that together and saying this needs to be done
Having
before
a
this
chart.
time.
Having
Checklist.
a chart, a
A checklist would be amazing, especially with
Yeah.
teenagers.
Yeah.
You can create some kind of document, I'm sure that teenager has a phone, and just share it amongst the family. Hey, this is the checklist. This is what you need to get done today, and mark off what you did get done, and mark off what you didn't. So.
And I want to mention this one word. You'll never forget this word. Ready? Ring. R-I-N-G. It is now normal for people in homes to have cameras inside. With the Ring, you can actually talk, kind of like the ring at your front door. Have you ever seen those doorbell rings? I've seen that you can have a conversation with people as they ring the doorbell. You can literally come on and say, hi, can I help you? And so I think setting up, if you're someone that works from the office and not from home and your kids are home alone, have a Ring camera and communicate with your kids. So if you see them kind of like, all over the place and not staying focused, you can still have a conversation. And then, of course, there's FaceTime. There's Zoom, there's other ways of communication, but I think Ring becomes like the new teacher within the room, and that's a good way to communicate with your kids. How can I encourage my child and spouse for us all to pray, seek God together on a regular basis? And I know this one, I would have to, I was always working a bazillion hours, and you were always and working at the same time, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but my wife used to work for the school district as well as a special needs. But you worked and you were keeping us in that place, even though, of course, I'm the spiritual head as the father, as the husband. I'm the spiritual lead, and so are you, dads. But what would you say to that? Like, how do we encourage the children and the spouse to keep that connection with God?
I think it's something that the children have to see, or your teenagers have to see you. But let's say it hasn't happened. I would suggest that, we all choose a time and we have devotionals. We used to do that all the time, although you work a lot of hours. Sometimes we were like, and that goes back to being flexible, because sometimes they tell you, like, if you do not spend time in the Word in the morning, then you're
going to hell.
You're going to hell, and you're sinning. And I used to think that way. I used to think like,
you'd feel guilty.
Yeah, and I would be like, I would be waking up my kids at 5 in the morning, being so zealous about it. But it was killing me. And then I would wake them up and like, we need to pray together. And then one day I was so exhausted. And then I felt that God asked me, like, where did you get that idea? Like, no, it's whenever. Like you're saying, you're doing math at 6 p.m. Well, that day Dad's coming at 7. At 7, we're going to have our time together with, we didn't make it long.
No,
we
short,
made
sweet,
it
and
very
simple.
short, sweet, and simple.
3 S's of life: short, sweet, simple.
Yeah, and we did it, and we would read let's say one psalm or whatever, and we would all take turns and what did you get about this, and how are we going to apply it? Because to us, it's like, how are we going to apply what we're reading tomorrow, or if we did it in the night? So I would say just to start. It's never too late to start. It takes 21 days to start a habit. So start gathering your family whenever they can. Of course, do not be crazy like me. And sometimes instead of them loving that time, we push the kids to hate devotionals because the mother or the dad, they're insane. And so it's actually surrendering yourself and let's make this fun. I have never been one of those parents that please don't do this to your children. If they misbehave, what they do is like they're going to write like 5 chapters or like they're going to write a scripture like 10 times. To me, it's like you're teaching your child to hate the word.
Yeah.
Because it was a punishment. And so, no.
Bible standards.
Bible standards, like, what is that? Please don't do
Thou
that.
shalt not steal 1,000 times.
Like, please don't do that. If you're doing it, you're forgiven. But no, they need to love the word. We need to, like, I don't want to do that. So just encourage your children and look for the time. And then it's okay if dad doesn't join sometimes because he has worked so hard. And then we give him grace and we pray for him that he's rested.
And the key is as a spouse, you have to be on the same team.
Yeah.
And so, you start with, your question is how do I encourage my child and spouse? Well, separate both because one is your spouse, the other one's a child. Sometimes we treat our spouse like the child and the child like the spouse because we vomit our issues with our children sometimes. Your father's never here on time. Your father never reads the Bible, or your mother, whatever. And we vent with the wrong they. So I would encourage you to first start with the conversation with your spouse and be like, hey, you know what? We're believers. We love Jesus. And we need to bring the center, Jesus, the anchor who's going to help us through all these storms of life that we're experiencing, whether it's political, whether it's COVID, whether it's the economy, whether it's whatever. But I need you. And having that serious conversation, not argue like, you never read the word with us. If you start like that, you end like that. So learn to communicate with your spouse and inspire them and encourage them that their support means the world to you and you can't do this alone. And keep it short, sweet, and simple. If you do a 30-minute devotional, I think that's not asking too much. And then as far as your child, remember, you're the parent, they're the child. And so start being the parent. And it's not an option. And so they may be there with a frown in their face. They may be there with an attitude. But you know what matters? But they're there. And the word of God is a seed. And that seed is like any farmer. That farmer knows that if I plant this corn seed, I'm going to reap a harvest of corn eventually. And so just keep watering them, and then the best is yet to be. Okay, last question. Excuse me. Oh, here's a good one. How do I explain to my children that things are changing so quickly? And I'm sure they probably mean it was very vague. I'm sure they think probably in the world. Have you guys had to talk to any of your kids like what's happening in the world? Like how do you explain that? How do you lead through that? I can give my opinion, but anyone here?
With Ethan, we just go back to the security in our family. And that's why I think it's really important. So we do talk about current events. He's 13, and we're reading about the U.S. government and history this year, so he's really into that, and he's been watching all kinds of, not just general news, but documentaries, and he's really into it. And it does sometimes give them anxiety, like, well, how is this going to end?
Yeah.
When are we ever going to get to go back to school? Are we ever going to have to be able to have our friends over? And so we have a chat about that. And then I always bring him back to, but we're together, and the Crew family is going to get through this. And as soon as you can have friends over, we're going to invite a bunch of friends over to the Crew family's house. And I think I kind of always bring it back to our family is secure because God's going to take care of us because we love him, and that's what he has promised to do. And so when Ethan has that deep in his heart, knowing that the changes that are happening quickly, and I agree with him, like, oh my gosh, this is happening so quickly. I don't try to take that feeling away from him. I actually tell him he's right. I'm surprised that you've noticed it's been changing so quickly. But nonetheless, we're going to be taken care of because we love the Lord, and that's what the Bible says, that he will take care of us. And so we're going to be taken care of together.
Awesome.
I think that's really important. I think that's where parents are missing that. We really have to establish ourselves as a unit for the Lord.
Very good. Very good. This is the last question, and for the sake of time, because we're already coming down to an end, we're down to like maybe 4 minutes left. But this is a good one. How do I become a better friend to my children at this time when they don't have access to be with their friends regularly? I'll answer, and then maybe each one of you will close with one answer, a real short one. That would be great. And this is a great question because it's funny. Just last night, I was sitting at the kitchen table. My son had just got home from work. And my son's 21, and though he's 21, he's still my son. I still want to have a relationship with my kids forever, right? And it's funny because we sat there, and I thought, man, I know he's busy with work, he's got life, but I still want that connection. I still want to be not only his father, but I want to be able to be even that friend. But also be very careful. You're parent first, then friend. And sometimes I think parents do it the reverse. I want to be their friend, and then I'll be their parent. It's not the right direction. It's not the right order. And so last night I said, and I'm like, hey, Isaac, I'm like, man, we need to find something to do. I'm like, we got to do something together, because I just feel like, he's been working. We're always working. And I know he's already a grown man. He's 21, but he's still my kid. But this would apply at any age. And I said, hey, Isaac, what would you like to do? Man, what would you like to do? What can we both do to just, hang out? And he kind of thought that was weird, kind of like, here's a 21-year-old, man looking at his dad like, I'm crazy. But I was being honest with him. And he said, Dad, I'll never forget when you used to play dominoes with us. And I'm like, really? Because I still love dominoes. I'm like, really, Dom? He's like, yeah. He's like, I like playing dominoes. I had no idea that my son liked playing dominoes, but it was always because I created that environment of just playing whatever board games, but never in a million years did I ever think that my son would. So now we're going to go buy dominoes. We're going to go to Rite Aid. It's not that expensive. And we're going to start doing some domino nights. And so I think finding those things of their interest, not your interest. And then that builds community. Go ahead.
I would say it's the same thing for me because my daughter loves to spend time differently than my son. And so with my son, it's like we love the same movies. We're pretty similar. So I do things that he loves. And I try to ask him, how was your day? I want to know about his life. I want to know not only what's good, I want to know his struggles, and I welcome his struggles, and if I can help him with anything. And so just with my daughter, and I think it's becoming that just a listening ear. We need to learn how to listen.
And you're great at that, honestly.
And sometimes they're like, when I want to talk, they're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm still talking, because I had to learn how to be a good listener. Because I'm the type of mom that I want to spend time with them, but I want to be doing the dishes. That doesn't work. I need to sit down with them. And
they want the attention.
They want to see me. And I'm a scanner. Like, that means my eyes are everywhere. So I have to make sure that when I'm doing that, I know their love language, and they know how they communicate. And I'm like looking at them like, okay.
That's good.
I'm even crying because I can't even blink. But I have learned how to, how do they communicate? And I do what they want to do.
That's awesome.
Just to add on to something that you guys touched on, teenagers, but with the little children, to be their friend at that time and give them that, that friend there is be okay with having a mess. When they have a friend over, they're going to dump the toy box,
Yeah.
They're going to create a fort, they're going to move the couches, whatever it is that they're going to do. let them have that time to be that child and have, a friend, not mom or dad is, playing with me right now, and, throw a towel on your back and run around as a superhero. That's what the children need right now when you're talking about, how can I be their friend? Is give them that attention, that time to actually become a child again with them.
That's cool. I used to build forts out of sheets with my kids in the living room. Every chair we'd tie it. So yeah, you can do cool stuff like that. How about you, Ann?
I was going to say the same thing, to play with them. I don't think we need to be their friend and join in their kid stuff, a kid conversation. You always want to kind of bring it over to the mature side of things, but definitely playing with them, being interested. Ethan likes to play basketball. I don't particularly enjoy that, so I'll sit outside while he's shooting baskets, and he just really likes being me being around him.
That's
so
good.
that's one of those love languages,
That's
that
awesome.
he needs me to be around him.
Awesome. Denise? Okay. Kyla?
Let's see. Well, I have a grandchild, and she's 4, and she can't wait for the sickness to be over. That's what she calls it. But I let her be a kid. She's at my house all the time, and I let her be a kid. Yes, she moves furniture everywhere, builds forts for her little sister and brother, and I let her get that out. But also, she's in TK, and 2 days a week, even though her dad's there, she's alone Zooming. But they have someone who come over to help her Zoom. That's how it is. But when that person leaves, she calls me. And I know I'm working, I know I'm busy, but as soon as she FaceTimes me, I answer. Because she needs some connection at that time. And I can't let her just be alone. So I let her connect with me as long as I can. And I do that twice a week. And then on the weekends, I would just say, definitely no technology. You don't need TV. We don't need iPads, nothing. We're going to just have life right now, whether it's telling stories under a sheet, going through the Bible, whatever it is, but, no tech. We're just going to have life. So everybody de-stresses, and we can have connection. And then another thing I wanted to say for a prior conversation you guys were having is that we have a family chat, a text family chat. I have 2 of them, but one is for my immediate family. And so we text all day, every day, to tell what we're doing. We have prayer requests. We send out scriptures. We just do life all day, every day as a family. And that's one way you can connect wherever people are in the world, so that people don't ever feel isolated.
Very good.
I think for me is, you spoke about it, Pastor. Isaac connected with something that you guys did in the past. And that was something that was of interest to you. And obviously Isaac has his own interest now. But I think what we need to do is flip the script a little bit and do something together that's new for both of you, a new experience.
Yes.
And that in itself will draw you guys closer together, because you'll remember the first time that you went skydiving together or something like that. And that'll bring the connection, or make the connection that much stronger. So
yeah, that's so good. Hey, can we give a big thank you emoji online and just say thank you to all these amazing people? I do have a few announcements. I want you to know that if you need more support for your kids, we do have youth and kids e-groups. What does that mean? Our kids, including our elementary kids, they have online Zoom ministry time amongst themselves with monitors, or what do you call those, moderators? Moderators online with them. And so that's something that you can sign up on our church app. We have ECA, Elevate Christian Academy. Go to our website, learn more. And I'm sure Ann Crew would be more than happy to have a conversation with you. So please join our ECA community. Know that we have Thursday enrichment programs. We have monthly activity community programs. And all you have to do is contact us. And then don't forget, join us for our church services. We have services. We have so many options. We have youth services on Wednesday nights for junior high through high school. And, when are we going to open? Good question. I don't know. But meanwhile, we have outdoor services on Wednesday at 7 p.m. and then online on Sunday. And I also want to let you know something, which, Frank, I'm gonna have to figure this out. I know this wasn't a part of our topic, but is there a way for us to create like a Facebook community group for parents? We have one. What is it called? eKids, go to Facebook page today and follow us on eKids Parent Connect. And I'm sure they'll put it on the message if you guys can find it and put it on the comments. And listen, we're going to start putting more information on there to help support you, give you resources, etc. We love you guys. Thank you for being with us today. You're awesome. And if you're a first-time guest, please text the number first on the number you see on the screen, and we'll connect with you. Let me pray for you. Father, we thank you for your grace, your mercy, as we're in this very different season of life. But Lord, we know that in all of it, you're with us, and you guide us, you lead us, but most importantly, we have a church family where we can connect. And so, Father, I pray for every single father and mother right now who are the heroes of this season for their children as they're parenting, as they're pastoring, as they're teaching, Lord. I pray that you would give them the anointing, you would give them the grace and the wisdom on how to do it, and also that they would know how to ask for help when they are stuck somewhere in life. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. See you Sunday, 8 o'clock, 9:45, and 11:30 a.m. Bye-bye.